Everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Career Evangelist Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and he's an author. He's an entrepreneur and a business strategist. He's gonna come in and introduce himself. Then we go from there. So, hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. My name, as you said, my name's Glenn Poulos, and happy to be here and looking forward to a nice episode.
All right, awesome. So, you are on the Career Evangelist Podcast, Glenn. What do you want my audience to know about your entrepreneurial journey and how it can help them? Can you please walk us through that?
Sure. So the one thing I would say is that it's your career, and so it is what you make of it, right? A lot of times when I've been on podcasts in the past, I've people like, oh, is there one last thing that you want to share? Well, I'll share it at the beginning instead of the end, because it's about careers and what have you, and it's the most I guess poignant advice that I have for people, right? And it's a little saying I have. It was in my book, and it was called "You only get forever to make another impression."
Mm,
And what I mean by that is that a lot of times people are like, well, my mom said I just need to make a good first impression, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's correct. Your mother was right. But what she left out was that when in the workplace, every impression is like the first impression.
mm,
You know, you can make a great first impression, but if you're a bum after that, then I'm afraid that's not going to cut it, right? And so, the people that get ahead in life or whatever, it's not a secret. Like, how did this guy or this gal get ahead of this one and this one? It's because they planned it, and they every step they took was planned and done specifically and deliberately in order to further their case, right? And they just did a little bit more on this. They asked a few more questions here. They attended an extra thing where other people are like, oh, that's not going to make a difference, or I'd rather go home a bit early, or I don't really want to go. And so these are the differences that stand out to the bosses later that govern how your career gets guided by the people above you. And those are the people that have your career in their hands, right? And so that's one of the things I always try to impress upon people, especially young people, that how important it is on how you appear to the people that are going to govern the steps you take along the way in your career journey, from entry level to, intermediate to department head to, manager, division manager, area manager, country manager, vice president, president, CEO, etc. And oftentimes people they'll hear stories about someone that started in a warehouse and 40 years later they're the CEO of a large company, right? It's like, how in the world could a guy driving a tow motor or forklift become CEO? And it's like one proper decision and one right move after another with no mistakes. That's how he did it, right? And
yeah.
so, anyways, I'll let you ask a couple questions, and but so I really want to impress that though at the
Okay.
very outset.
No, thank you very much, Glenn. I think your comment boils down to being intentional. And I like what you
Yeah.
said that the first impression, they said it lasts, but you constantly have to make this impression to your manager, to the head of the business unit. So maybe the next question now is, Glenn, how do we constantly make this good impression so that we will be able to position ourselves for growth, whether it's in our business or in our career.
So good impressions come from consistency, not charisma, right? And so like a fancy, like bravado and like puffing out your chest and whatever and acting much. That's not the thing. It's about being consistent, right? And so people remember how you make them feel. Did you listen? Did you show up prepared? Did you keep your word? Did you follow through? Those are so important. For instance, you're in a meeting and you commit to sending some documents and maybe a follow-up or a report or kind of something, you're expecting something back. You do everything on the timelines you sent, and it's kind of a black hole waiting for you to get back what you're expecting from the other party, right? And you're like, oh, just following up to see if you got my report and if you get, if your feedback was coming. And again, it's kind of a black hole, and they kind of like just sort of defer, delay, and the words escaping me. I'm trying to, but they're basically they just don't answer you, right? And
Hmm.
so that becomes a memory that you don't forget, right? It's like, oh, well, I always do my part, and they're not really good on the return volley with obligations and what have you, right? And so I learned in my career you got to make every interaction leave it a little bit better than the way you found it,
Hmm.
right? And and so you might be in a room with things, maybe one of the managers is there, something like that. There's kind of a bit of a banter or talk about something, and everyone sort of wanders off and then goes and talks about the hockey game or the football game or whatever. But you go off and you do a bit of research and say, boss, you didn't ask me, but I couldn't stop thinking about you, that question you asked, and did a little bit of research. I prepared a bit of data, and this is some of the stuff I came up with. No pressure, read it when you get a chance, right? Um, and okay, nowadays, with all the tools we have at our hands with AI, it's easy to come up with some of those answers as well, right? But you
Yeah.
want to make sure you're not just taking a quick answer from ChatGPT and sending it, because you might have a critical mistake in it and really, again, leave a bad impression, right? So be
Yeah.
careful on it has to be genuine and it has to be accurate and authentic, right?
Yeah.
And again, in the business world, which is the world I come from, there's many opportunities that present themselves like trade shows and training events and company meetings and town halls, they call them, and things like that, right? And so let's say, like the CEO or some department vice president or whatever is going to do a town hall next Friday, and he's the head of maybe marketing or something like that, right?
Hmm.
You want to spend the next couple of weeks figuring out the one quick don't you want to be a smart aleck, but you want to figure out some nice kind of question that you can ask them that shows that you're on the ball. Maybe, if it's marketing, maybe you looked at the website and you noticed that, you know, you haven't added animations or you haven't gone to, JSON 6 or whatever, whatever the right thing is, but just something kind of catchy. And so when the guy's doing his thing and then at the end he goes, any questions? And no one says anything because they're all scared. And you go, well, I just have one little question. And and it was just like, hey, when are we going to upgrade to animated signature fonts in our emails, right? A lot of people are doing that. And he's like, oh, it's funny you mentioned that because we're working on an animated signature right now, and we're going to roll that out to the team. Oh, okay. So, and then on the next one, and you've always got, and again, later, what ends up happening is that guy's the head of marketing, right? The next town hall is the head of finance guy. He's doing a thing. You ask a question about the company's something that's appropriate for you to ask,
Hmm.
and then later, the finance guy, then there's another guy, then the CEO, and now you're four town halls later, right? It's a year from now,
Right.
and those four guys are off at a meeting, right? And they're like, who should we move up in the in that sales team or in that management team, to lead that new effort we've got, in such and such. And immediately when they think to it, all they can think of is the guy who asked the four questions in the four town halls. That's the only face they can remember, right? Your
Right.
name comes up automatically, right? It's like, oh, well, that Glenn guy's on point,
Yeah.
you got to see how that's how the magic builds on itself. And a lot of people are like, oh, that doesn't make sense, and that's, you know, uh, sounds like you're being playing a game or something like that. And it's like, no, you're playing a game. It's called your life, and it's a very serious game. And I mean, football's a serious game too. I mean, and that's why NFL players make millions of dollars a year, right?
Right.
And so don't trifle with games just because that's what they are. And so these are important, and so, people might forget what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel, right? So,
Absolutely.
you want to say things to help them, that make them feel good in the moment of the interaction as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so people are like, well, what does that mean? Like, how do I have an impact on the way the bosses feel? Well, one would be one of my rules from my book, never forget a face, right?
Mm.
Make point of knowing the people that above you, what are
Mhm.
their names, right? all the different, so that when they walk by you in the hall, you can say, "Hey, Judy, nice to see you," right? And they're like, "Who's that?" And then they're like, and then a month later, you see her again, "Judy, nice to see you again," right? And then she's like, "Oh, that Glenn guy, she thinks it subconsciously, but she says to herself, she says, I really like that guy. He always remembers my name.
Right.
He's
Right.
such a pleasure to be around," right?
Yeah.
And again, people are like, "Oh, that doesn't make any difference." It does make a huge difference because just imagine, on the weekend you went to the soccer game and this family comes up and this husband and wife come up to you and your wife and they're like, "Oh, Glenn and Sally and whatever, it's so great to see you." And you're like, "Oh yeah, it's so great to see you." And like they can tell that you don't remember their name. And they're specifically and distinctly their feelings are hurt, right?
Yeah.
And you can never get that moment back,
Right.
right?
That's
And
right.
so and so when it comes to the bosses and stuff like that, you don't want that feeling where you forgot what Sally's name was, the head of finance, or
Mhm.
and so again, these are small little things that build to create a career so that you can go from the warehouse to the CEO's office, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Thank you very much, Glenn, for mentioning that. I noticed that you sell sales several times. I know you are passionate about helping salespeople to succeed and build a successful sales career. Can you share with us why salespeople? Why are you focused on them, and what's the motivation behind that?
Okay, so the really my focus is more on business but most businesses are sales companies, right? So really nothing happens at a company. You invent the next widget, the best piece of software, but nothing happens until something gets sold, right?
All right.
When
Yeah.
somebody wants to start a business, I always tell them there's three things that they need, right? They need 12 to 18 months of runway so that they don't starve. So they need a very, loving spouse that has a job, or they need a bunch of money in the bank to feed themselves for a year, right? They need a customer that takes a chance on them and gives them that first order. And then
Mhm.
the other thing is they need a minimum viable product, something to sell, right? And so, but the business doesn't start until they get that first order, right? But I kind of grew up in the sales world. I saw and I learned, and I call it the cheat code to life, right? And so, in the sense of, you know, the you can leapfrog your friends and colleagues and what have you. They're in jobs like maybe they're in accounting or something like that, and the and they start off at $45,000 a year, and they can pretty much tell you when they 26 years later, 25 years later when they leave, how much money they're going to be making, right?
Mhm.
Junior accountant makes 45 to 65, right? And
Right.
then midterm accountant makes 65 to 75, and then they go 85 to 100, 100 to 120, 120, 150, right? Well, a
Mhm.
sales guy, a good salesperson can start at the same number, $45,000, and they can be making 150 grand the next year. What other job can you do that in? Right. And you're not doing anything that's nefarious or illegal, right?
Right.
You're just a good salesperson. And
Mhm.
that's the cheat code, right? And
Right.
so the cheat code is that you, without a 10-year brain surgeon, schooling, a PhD or a doctorate or something like that, you can leapfrog the earnings model by going into sales, learning your product, being passionate about it, and what have you. That's the point. And then I learned after my first sales job
Mhm.
that the second cheat code is the one where you own the sales company and you hire yourself and salespeople to do the selling. Now, you not only get paid when you sell, but you get paid when all the salespeople that work for your company sell, right?
Right.
So it's an extra lottery ticket, right? Because
Right.
now you get paid every time. Whereas salespeople that are just coming up, they get paid when they sell. You get paid when all of them sell, right? And so that's why I'm passionate about and it's one of the oldest careers there is, and we need all the other departments, but even within those departments, those people are always selling as well, right? They're selling either services to employees within their company, or they're selling themselves on that they're doing a good job. I mean, really, the sales is a fundamental part of most parts of life in terms of getting ahead, right? In your
Yes,
career.
yes,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that, Glenn. So now, are there some ideas or skills that you would recommend uh, every salespeople to at least develop that you are willing to share with us?
Okay, so the I always start with I call it the three pillars of kindness: empathy, sympathy, and compassion. Okay. And that the in order to people, again, they're motivated by how you make them feel, not by what you say, right? And so one of the things that's important as a salesperson, or even in your general career, doesn't just apply to salespeople, is learning the art of listening, right? God gave you two ears and one mouth, right? So you do the math, right? And so you should be listening twice as much as you're talking,
Hmm.
and and not listening to respond, but listening to understand, right? That's the mistake most people make. Like, they hear words coming out of your mouth, and the guy says, oh, we were looking at discombobulators last week. He's like, oh, we sell discombobulators, right? And then there was later on in the conversation, he talks about flux capacitors, right? He's like, oh yeah, we sell flux capacitors too. And like, no, no, no. Let the guy talk. Let him get the full thought out. Think about it for a minute. Reflect upon it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that you're struggling with human resource, you're struggling with this, you're struggling with that. These are some of the pain points that you're looking to solve, right? And so and and that's where the ideas of learning about empathy, sympathy, and compassion, right? And what the differences of them mean, right? And just quickly, you know, sympathy is understanding how someone feels. It's like, someone stubs their toe. It's like, oh, that must have hurt, right? But empathy is actually stopping for a minute and feeling the pain, right? And saying like, oh, if I remember I stubbed my toe a week ago, man, how like, that's empathy, where you're literally stopping and putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? Sympathy is just understanding that like, oh, I lost my job. Oh, that really sucks. That's kind of like sympathy, right?
Right.
Empathy is stopping and saying to yourself, like, man, oh, that's Jack, he's got three kids and lost his job and his wife and this and that. She doesn't work. And oh my God, I'd be like freaking out. Like,
Mhm.
and that's empathy, right? You're putting yourself, and then compassion is wanting to alleviate their suffering, right? That's the difference, right? And
Right.
so you need to learn how to apply them, when to apply them, what's appropriate, and it has to be genuine so you can build rapport. And that's really what it all is around, the building of genuine rapport. um and because if it's genuine, then the customer will feel it and he'll want to be around you more, and he'll open up to you more, share more what the issues are. If he thinks you're just selling, then they kind of shut down and they hold the goodies back for other people that make them feel better, right?
Mhm.
And so, the other things you need to know, you were asking me, like, what are the skills? You want to be passionate about your product. If you're not super passionate about your product, and
Right.
your product's not number one or number two in the market, doesn't matter what it is, software, hardware, services, it doesn't matter. If you're not number one or two, quit and get a new job. That's my advice to you. And
Yeah.
the people are like, why would you say that? And I'm like, because number three and number four spend 80% of their time explaining who they are. Who
Mm.
they are. Well,
Right.
who the heck is Acme Distributing? I've never heard of you, right? We always buy from IBM and Dell,
Right.
right?
Right.
Nobody ever got fired for buying HP or IBM, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, well, we're the honorable number three, and we sell almost as much as Hewlett Packard or HP or Dell or IBM or whatever. And like, well, I never heard of you. And
Yeah.
so you're spending all the time, and then in the last 3 minutes of the conversation, you get to ask them, so like, what are you struggling with? And you never get there. And so 80% of the business ends up going to the top vendors. And so you only get one life to live. You
Mm-hmm.
might as well be passionate about the top products and
Mm-hmm.
sell that.
Oh,
And
that's
so if you learn that you're kind of at the bottom of the heap, take the lessons that you've learned in that business and move up the ladder on terms of the product stack, because you're not gonna be able to replace the time that's going by,
yeah.
right? And so do it as quickly as possible, right? And then be passionate about the product, learn the products, you know, and that will come across in the in your presentation that you're genuine, you're passionate, and and learn how to present products in a proper way, right? And again, I know I'm plugging my book and my my stuff, but I mean, I have a presentation technique called the punch, perfect pitch, and close, right? Which
Yeah.
explains how to do presentations on my website, Glenn Poulos. You can download it for free, but it shows people how to grab attention when you're doing presentations, so people don't fall asleep or leave the room, right? And which is a huge problem, right? People go in, they do a presentation, they start off and they're like, oh, I work for Acme, computers, and we're based in England. We've got 1,800 people and our factories in Brazil. And people are like, well, I'm already bored and I'm not listening. And I'm looking at my phone, right? You want
Yeah.
to attract their attention. You want to punch them with something that's going to attract their attention. And then you want to structure your pitch perfectly, right? And so, and I mean, and there's not really time to go over it all now, but it leverages a concept I call the Goldilocks principle, right? Where it's the power of three, right? Small, medium, large, good, better, best, right? And you always package things in threes for people. Two's not enough, four's too many.
Okay.
And if you want to know more, just download the thing and read it. It's free and doesn't cost anything, and it's a great idea. It works perfectly. And so those are some things that you want to be good at in sales.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing is just be good at it, right? Like it's the highest paying job when you pay attention to it and you're good at it and you take it seriously, and it's the lowest paying job when you're messing around and you're not serious about it, right? You
Yeah.
could make almost nothing, or you could make bags of money, right?
Yeah. No, thank you very much for sharing that. I was going to ask about principles of sales that you are willing to share with listeners, especially from your book. Maybe can you give us yeah, the takeaway from your book? Tell us the title and
Sure.
what can my listeners expect to learn by picking your book?
So the book is called Never Sit in the Lobby, 57 Tips on Building a Career in Business and Sales. And so the nice thing about it's 57 tips, right? You don't have to read them all at the same time. You can read one, put it down, pick it up again. A few days later, read another couple of tips, pick it down, put it up, flip it to the open into the middle of the book, read tip number 24. And these are lessons that I learned over 40 years in sales and business, and they apply to life, right? Like active listening, rapport, the three pillars of kindness. These are things you apply in your everyday life for creating genuine connections with people. It's not just about sales, right? It's how to grow your entire career in business and in sales. And so it's just basically 57 tips. It's actually over 70 tips, but we the whole Heinz 57 thing and what have you, it was just the way we came up with it. But if you count them all, there's more than 57. So you get a bonus. You get a bonus for free. So
That's good. That's good. As we are wrapping it, I want to hear more about your coaching business because I know you also help to build future salespeople. So, how does that work? In case there are people out there that want to
yeah.
come to you for coaching.
So I do connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn and what have you now. And the thing is, I bought a business recently in Florida. I'm from Canada, and I bought a business in the United States, and I got a visa, and I had to sort of step back from direct one-on-one coaching on a contractual basis. And now I'm more often I'm just connecting with people over LinkedIn and sharing my knowledge freely with them via, just networking and conversation, whatever. But I'm not really taking on clients because I'm kind of swamped with getting my business. It's not a new business. It's a 20-year-old company, but I bought it from a guy who's retiring.
Oh,
And sorry about that beeping sound. Um, and Yeah, and so I've just all encompassed right now. So I've had to step back and focus entirely on that for a little while. And but I'm very open to collaborating with people, talking to them on LinkedIn, sharing ideas and answering questions and concepts. And I attend mastermind groups and things like that where I share freely. And so if anyone has any questions or comments they'd like to talk to me, just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message and I'll respond. So.
So good. So finally, Glenn, we want you to leave us with actionable tips for the listener so that especially those that want to improve their sales performance or start their own successful business. What do you say to them, Glenn?
So, well, one, you want to be prepared when you go in, right? So when you find out the guys or gals got an opportunity, you want to prepare, right? And when there's an opportunity at stake, you'll find that your ability to retain the information increases, right? So when there's money at stake or things like that, it's like when you, not a good example, but when you bet $5 on a football game, right?
Yeah,
For some reason, you want to watch that whole game,
yeah.
right?
Money is at
Yeah,
stake, right?
right? Because there's
Yeah.
right. And so it's the same thing when you're learning about products and stuff. Like if you're just learning about it and trying to remember, it's hard. But when you found out some opportunities, so you want to basically stack the learning when the opportunities present themselves, right? You always want to be asking for feedback at every step, in every kind of thing that you're doing, right? So people, will offer you ways of improving and if you want to be the one that's willing to hear, what other people don't want to hear, right? So you want to review your own performance, right? Set goals and measure yourself against the goals. And one thing that I learned, especially with this new company, I sold my business in Canada in 2022, bought the business in Florida, much smaller company, and I'm realizing that what makes the difference, is not how I feel or it's the fact that I show up every day and I move the needle a tiny bit every single day and I always go every day, right?
Mhm.
And and so you want to get up and do the next right thing every day. And a month later, 6 months later, a year later, you look back and you're like, I can't believe how far I moved the goalpost or the yardstick or whatever because you've done it every day, right? And a lot of people, it's like, oh, I need a mental health day, and I'm gonna, I need to go take 2 weeks off, and I'm building a business. I don't have time to take 2 weeks off, right? Like, and eventually that will come, right? But not, when you first, get
Get me
involved or
started.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? So you
Yeah.
always want to be doing the next right thing, even as small as it is, it's super important.
That's a good. Thank you very much, Glenn, for coming on the show. We appreciate the wealth of wisdom that you have shared with our listeners here. And I do continue to wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right.